Alright, so moving on. Once you've succeeded in getting into this F1 bush here, and you've driven snipers off the top edge of the bank here, and you've driven enemy tanks back behind this bend in the road right here, and you know that there's no one here in this 2 and 3 line depression. It's very important that you know that there's absolutely no one from the enemy team in this position. If they're in the center depression right here, it's okay, it's not ideal, but as long as you're careful in your approach into this next position, then you'll be alright. But it's very, very important that you do not decide to go into this next location here, which is in G2, in this set of bushes just on the west side of the road right here. Basically, what you're trying to do in this position is to counter scout this bend in the road here. There's actually a set of bushes here. You see, once again, like I was talking before, how this road starts bending right here, and because of the bend, you actually have a direct line of sight to tanks that might be sitting slightly on the other side of this curve. But also, the other main goal of you moving into this G2 position is to spot enemy tanks that are sitting here along the 5 and the 6 lines. And once again, a lot of people do the progression of the 1-2 lines wrong. Once they get to this point, when you successfully use the E1 and the F1 and the D1 bushes here, your next step of progression is actually not moving past this bend of the road. It is not, usually. First, you need to check and see if you can shoot and spot any of the tanks sitting here in the 5 and the 6 lines. And I'll go into free cam here, because this position becomes incredibly powerful for one very, very important reason. And once again, it's the bend in the road. Right where this AT-15A died, the road starts curving. And tanks that are driven back here and sitting back here on this back slope cannot see you sitting here. And so when you move up here, you can basically spot the entire field area for free. And if there's no one in the center depression and this left depression right here, you can actually shoot the tanks sitting along here on the 5 and the 6 line, usually pretty safely unless they have really good view range. And this will help your team immensely, because this 6 line is very, very powerful. It's a crossfire position into all parts of the map. It can shoot into the hill along the 9-0 lines. It can shoot straight down when peeking and poking to the opposing side on the other side of the 6 line. And it can shoot into the 1-2 lines. So it's really, really important once you made the enemy retreat from the curve in the road right here where this AT-15A has died, that you just stop and take your time and move into this G2 position right here. And your vision, your teammates actually don't have to move up as far as you are. They can actually sit where you were sitting earlier in D1 and E1. And when you spot the enemy tanks here, they may be behind the middle line ridge here, but they aren't in cover from your sniper fire from the 1-2 lines. And they might be sitting low, but you are spotting them, and they will get shot up very, very well. Also, if you take a very conservative approach into this bush, once again, you can spot a sniper sitting in the very back of J1 here that you might have not been able to see previously from your F1 position, so that is another area that you can spot as well. Alright, so moving to the next position is actually back here in F2. Right in front of this bowl depression right here that a lot of people are familiar with here in E2 and on the top of F2 is this little set of bushes right here, right to the east side of the road. And I really like using this position once again when you know that you've driven the enemy team back behind the bend in the road. And I'll go into free cam once again here. Once you know that you've driven the enemy team back behind this bend in the road, where does the road shift to, right? It shifts to the left or to the east, right? And because of that, this spotting position is offset to the east side of the road. So there's this long row of bushes right here and this long row of bushes right here no longer play a role in you trying to spot the enemy team if they are back here behind the bend in the road. The only camera rating that you're trying to cut through if they're sitting back here where this AT-15 is the actual bush that they're sitting in and no other bush. So they don't have a double or triple or quadruple bush that they're sitting through, with the contingency that they are actually sitting to the east side into the bend here. If they're sitting up here, of course you won't spot them because you have this huge row of bushes right here. But I really like spotting from this location here first before I decide to advance any further down the 1-2 lines. And it's really important to be patient. Once again, when you're using all of these spotting positions, be patient and keep in mind that the crossfire that's going on, a lot of the time your spots into the 1-2 lines are contingent on what's going on here, right? There's a lot of point blank engagements that's happening along the center ridge line and tanks exchanging fire, and these guys will get spotted quite often, right? And because they get spotted, a lot of the sniper fire, people will start shooting at those tanks from back here. So you just need to be patient. Once these guys back here start firing, their camo rating dramatically drops and they will be a lot easier to spot. So just sit there, be patient, watch what your team is doing and how the enemy team is interacting with them, and you will get productive spots. Alright, so moving on to the next position here is in the very bottom of G2, and once again, just like all the other previous positions that I mentioned, it's dependent on two variables. One, once again, you need to make sure that there are no enemy tanks in this 1-2 line depression, and once again, you need to be absolutely confident that there's no one sitting here high up on the bank in H1 and J1. If you try to go here, these tanks will easily counter you. They have a ridge line here to sit behind and bushes of their own to sit in. And if you push up from this previous location that I had mentioned before into here, they will easily spot you, and you'll die pretty quick. But this next position here is actually really good, and I'll explain why. This particular game was on Fiery Salient, but there's a pretty similar position on Prokhorovka, and this set of bushes is right before the bend in the road. And this position is really powerful, and once again I'll explain why. It's because you're eliminating the double bushes that are on the east side and on the west side of the road. And so that there's actually only one bush of camo rating that you're trying to cut through to spot the enemy tanks, and that is the bush that they're actually sitting in. So as soon as they start moving and they start firing, they become really easy to spot because I'm only about 150 to 175 meters away from him here. And this bush works really well just because there's all this open ground right in between me and the enemy tanks, this open ground of the road itself. So they have no soft cover other than the bush that they're sitting in. And these tanks in front of me here, this T-57 and this Waffenträger Panzer IV, get absolutely pwned by all the snipers back here as soon as I spot them. And also, once again, just like similarly in this higher position back here in the G2 bush that I was showing you guys, you can also spot the 6 line once again from this position. Alright, so moving on to the next potential location that you guys can use here is actually the G1 bush. And this is the same G1 bush that normally an enemy scout would be using to spot the 1-2 lines for their side from the south spawn. Now, almost all the time I actually don't use this bush at all. This position is actually very dangerous to try and get to, mainly because you have this huge distance of open ground that you have to cover up high on a bank, and it generally only works in low to mid-tier games like tier 5 and tier 6 games, when the enemy tanks remaining back here don't have very good view range. I would not recommend to use this bush on anything tier 7 or higher, just because the enemy tank's view range is just too good and they'll spot you trying to get into this position right here. Also, you don't want to try and move into this position right here in G1 if there's still enemy tanks right here where this Sherman and this T-34 Rex are, because they'll also easily spot you. The main goal of using this position here is actually not spotting these tanks right here, but actually spotting the enemy tanks behind them, close to the edge of the map, actually back in K2. You see there's actually a crossroads here from the north-south road here, and there's a little east-west graphic road right here. You're trying to spot snipers back here, and also snipers that might be offset to the east side of the road back here. And you can spot them better from this location here because you're so high up on the bank, and you can actually see over top of all these bushes, and you get a better direct line of sight onto them. Alright, so now that we've covered all the progressive bush hopping and passive spotting locations all the way up until this position right here in H2, now spotting the rest of the 1-2 lines, now there is actually no more passive spotting at all, actually. Once you've reached this bend in the road and you think that there's still more enemy tanks back here in the very bottom of K2 and K3 sitting back here, or in a really good camo bushes and having a camo net or whatever here, and you're still not spotting them, then it all becomes active scouting from that point. And how you do that is basically you do really conservative peek right here to see which side of the road they're sitting on. Are they sitting right here along the west side of the road, or are they sitting here, or some combination of the two? And from that point you start roll scouting like this, and progressively deeper as your team kills them off. Or if your team has won the field area, or the 1 or 2 enemy tanks left along the 5 and the 6 line here are preoccupied, you can dive into this 2 and 3 line depression right here and start roll scouting like this, progressively further and further, spotting enemy tanks here that were harder to see before, and you will eventually spot these guys back here in the very back corner of K2 and K3. And I'm just going to show you guys this short clip of just roll scouting the 2-3 lines and what I'm talking about here. Just you see that the K2 and the K3 area is actually up on a plateau compared to this ridgeline here. But all you need to do is just to be running loops just like this and scouting them and keeping them lit. You don't need to commit in until there's only 1 or 2 tanks left, and then you can dive in because you know that your mobility can keep you alive and keep you from getting shot. Alright, so we'll do a quick review for you guys here so you guys can see all these bushes that I talked about again in sequence. First of all, we talked about the conservative D1 bush right here that you can use that is more safe and keeps you a little bit safe from getting counter scouted from any positions along the road and along the edge of the bank. Then you can move up more aggressive here if you feel confident to the E1 bush right here, which gives you better vision onto the western side of the road back there further behind the curve in the road. Once again, you need to make sure that there's no enemy tanks along the 2 and the 3 line in the center as you're jumping into there. Next, you move into this line of bushes right here along the F1 area, and you can more easily spot enemy tanks that might have been sitting with a higher camo rating on the bend in the road, and any snipers that might be sitting high along the bank. And then from there, it's kind of battle dependent on where the enemy team is deployed. You can move over here to this position that I was talking about that you can use to spot enemy tanks that might be sitting back behind the curve in the road. Or you can stay on the western side of the road and just keep bush hopping from this location right here, in which you can spot the center of the field area as well as enemy tanks on the road and snipers back in G1. And then you can progressively move on to this last bush right here along the bend in the road, and from there then it becomes active roll scouting either on the east side of the road and the west side of the road, digging out the last remaining tanks in K2 and in K3. So I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this guide and learned a lot more about how to progressively work the 1-2 lines on Prokhorovka from the north spawn. As I said at the start of this video, I myself learned a little bit more about how to scout this 1-2 line, trying to put this video together and trying to work out all the positions. And if you guys have any questions about what I was talking about in the video as far as progressing from all those locations that I was talking about, just feel free to ask in the comments of the video below, and I will do the best I can to answer them. Thank you so much for watching, and good hunting.